Ano sara sina chino mwariwe Nokutenda tino na mulomu ya mbuta Jopo ano sara sina chino mwariwe Maparo ano rewa mulomu ya mbuta Jopo akasara sina chino mwariwe Nokutenda makamu ya mbuta Jopo akasara sina na mwariwe Nokutenda makamu ya mbuta Papa sara sina fuma mwaliwe Nokutenda makamu ya mbuta Nokutenda munobira na mwaliwe Nokutenda makamira na mwaliwe Nokutenda munobira na mwaliwe Nokutenda makamira na mwaliwe Baya pita ganga onyura mwaliwe Lorudo kwenyu makamu nyura mwaliwe Pita ganga onyura mwaliwe Nokutenda makamu nyura mwaliwe Tinoa katigo simutawe Tinoa katigo simutawe Tinoa katigo simutawe Tinoa katigo simusangano Tinoa katigo simutawe Tinoa katigo simusangano Tinoa katigo simutawe
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Zimbabwe, depending, of course, on where you are. I know it's a very good evening in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa, but of course, here in North America, it's 19 minutes past 2, so it's still a very good afternoon. Welcome to your favorite radio station, Change Radio, Current Affairs program, where today we are fortunate to be joined by a very important person, Honorable Gumbo, one of the young techs in the Zimbabwe Parliament. If you want to talk about youth empowerment, talk to CCC. This is one of our young men who is leading a portfolio, by the way, and he is also a member of
viewers and listeners, we apologize. We seem to be having technical issues. Please bear with us as we sort things out. Chief, can you hear me? Okay, everybody else cannot hear you, Chief. Okay, I think you're back now. You're still inaudible. Chief, you might want to drop out and then come back in. But in the meantime, whilst we are waiting for Chief to come back, allow me, our Change Radio viewers and listeners, to wish you a warm welcome to one of our new programs that we are bringing for you, Change Radio Current Affairs, where we address the current affairs on the political scene, the economic scene, the social scene on the ground in Zimbabwe. And as Chief was saying before he dropped, today we have the honor of hosting Honorable Agency Gumbo. Welcome back, Chief. Can we just test your sound?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think something happened when I just started speaking, but I'm sure you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me again welcome Zimbabweans that are just joining us on our favorite, on your favorite radio station, Change Radio, and this is Change Radio, special edition of Current Affairs program. And as I said earlier, today we are fortunate that we have been joined by one of the young members of Parliament, Honorable Agents Gumbo. And I'd also say that if you want to talk about youth empowerment, go to CCC because this is one of our young techs, a member of Parliament, and also a leader or a shadow minister in the recently announced cabinet. And of course, he is here to walk us through what is going on in Parliament and also what is going on inside the CCC. In our discussion, we'll also touch on the effect of the South African election on the Zimbabwean political scenario. So please do share the video with as many people as possible so that we can have this discussion. It's a very important discussion. And of course, I know Estella has already spoken. She is here. I have not heard what you said, Estella. So you can go ahead and greet the people again and greet me too.
Thank you, Chief. Welcome back, Chief. And once again, a warm welcome to you all, our Change Radio viewers and listeners. We are excited to present to you one of our young members of Parliament from the CCC, Honorable Agency Gumbo, who is MP for Hatcliffe. We have some powerful questions and discussions to hold with him, which we hope and trust you will find informative. Feel free to post any questions that you might have for Honorable Gumbo in the comment section. We will read your questions out, and I am confident he will be happy to oblige and answer your questions. But without much ado, I hand back to you, Chief.
Yes, Honorable, welcome to this special program. Please go ahead and greet our viewers and listeners and just say your welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Mambo Sose. Thank you, Estella, for the kind and for the kind introduction and the greetings. And I want to extend my greetings to all our viewers, our listeners, and all Zimbabweans and all stakeholders of the Zimbabwe Change Agenda and Change Project. It is a pleasure to be at this show. It is a pleasure to come and engage in discourse with the greater population of our nation, both in Zimbabwe and outside Zimbabwe. Thank you for having me. These are very important platforms. We don't take it lightly when we're invited to come and engage in discourse that is meant to chart the trajectory of our country forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. And we'll get right into it. And we apologize in advance, Honorable, because we might ask you some questions that might make you feel uncomfortable, but I know you can handle anything. But here at Change Radio, we represent the interests of the people. So we speak to you what the people are speaking in the streets there. So in the streets right now, Honorable, people are saying, why are you guys still in Parliament? I think you've seen it on social media, on Twitter. You've received a lot of flack on there. And now recently we saw that Mr. Timber announced a cabinet that will be representing CCC or the interest of the people. Is it still relevant for you guys to be in Parliament, especially after the Shabangu debacle, before we go into the shadow?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, obviously, we do understand the frustrations, that our people battle with. The frustration around the questions of legitimacy of the current Mnangagwa regime, the questions around and the concerns around a disputed election. We know that the 2023 general election was a shambolic process which hijacked the will of the people. We know the shenanigans that surrounded the electoral process itself, which gave birth or gave rise to the crisis of legitimacy which our nation now suffers, or which our nation now is battling under. So because of such processes, such disputed processes, people are bound to be frustrated. They are bound to be frustrated because they are quite aware that whatever government is in place at this current moment is not representative of the will or the majority of the people of Zimbabwe. So that's where the frustration commences. We know very well that post the election, the Mnangagwa regime also then started a push towards a two-thirds majority. The push towards a two-thirds majority was characterized by a lot of attempts. At one point, there were attempts at arresting a lot of our elected officials, seeking to, convict on flimsy charges a number of our elected MPs so that they can pave way for by-elections, which would then aid their two-thirds majority agenda. This not having been successful at that stage, we then noticed ZANU-PF's onslaught through proxies, and this is where we then make mention of funny characters such as the Sengenzo Chavangus, who came up, as proxies of ZANU-PF to perpetuate the two-thirds agenda that Idi Mnangagwa had started post the 2023 election, having failed to secure through the electoral process a two-thirds majority. So a lot of recalls, you'll remember, then were effected, illegal recalls for that matter, because one man just wakes up one morning and says, I am the Secretary General of the CCC, writes letters to Parliament, President of Senate, and recalls our elected members elected by the people of Zimbabwe, paving way for a series of by-elections in this country, which then saw Idi Mnangagwa ZANU-PF winning most of these by-elections to secure his two-thirds majority for obviously purposes which I'm sure we can then discuss as we go along this program. But so it is that kind of activity, illegal activity within the Parliament building, which has caused a number of our people to now express their concern as to whether Parliament is still a platform for which we can utilize for our democratic breakthrough, or is it still also a platform which represents the voice of the people of Zimbabwe? So those concerns are not unfounded. Those concerns are correct. But let me come to the issue of relevance and why then are we still remaining in Parliament, even in light of the attacks on the democratic movement in Zimbabwe. We must answer that question in twofold. If one is to evaluate the role and relevance of Parliament, one must consider, number one, the constitutional role that Parliament must play. Parliament is set up and is made up in terms of the constitution of the land, which is the supreme law of our country. And it carries a role of ensuring the lawmaking process, the legislative role. It has a role of ensuring a representative representation of the people of Zimbabwe, the citizens of Zimbabwe, in all the constituencies and in all the demographics, youth, women, and so on and so forth. It ensures that there's representation, and it also exists for purposes of ensuring oversight over the executive. And this is the oversight role which ensures that all ministers and all government agencies account to Parliament on behalf of the people of Zimbabwe. So that is a role which is enshrined within the constitution of this country, and is a role which must never be abandoned. Because when there's no Parliament, or when there's no representation in Parliament, the people of Zimbabwe will not have a voice in the lawmaking process. The people of Zimbabwe will not have a voice in bringing the executive ZANU-PF regime to account, and in also ensuring that the voice for democracy is aired out without fear in that space. So Parliament, for purposes of that constitutional mandate, remains relevant because our MPs are at the current moment seized with several issues which they are presenting in the August House, several issues which they are holding government to account, and several bills and laws which they are participating in the making of. You know very well that we are in charge of about 7 committees of Parliament, where we chair those committees, and we are in all the committees of Parliament, including the Public Accounts Committee, which is chaired by the opposition, by the CCC. So these are roles which are significant, which are important, which we cannot just abandon and allow ZANU-PF to run scot-free. Yes, there's then the second consideration, which is the politics of the day. The politics of the day, we will not mince our words. The politics of the day is bad. It's bad, is bad, is bad. ZANU-PF has done and continues to do everything within its capacity to thwart the voices of the alternative. They continue to do everything within their capacity to limit and shrink the democratic space in this country. So the politics of the day has also affected Parliament as it is, because I've spoken about the recalls. I've spoken about ZANU-PF's push for a 2/3 majority. Why are they pushing for 2/3 majority? They also want to have the capacity to pass laws as they want and to make laws. We have the PVO bill now that they're trying to push, and they will utilize their majority in Parliament to silence the civic organizations and silence the alternative voices. So the politics of the day has made a difficult platform to push for the democratic agenda. But nonetheless, the voices of your MPs, the voices of the alternative remain relevant in terms of expressing the views and the desires and the heart of the people of Zimbabwe. So we do believe that, yes, regardless of the challenges that we have been facing as a parliament, the opposition must remain in Parliament, and it must remain in Parliament. It must focus on delivering the will of the people in Parliament. Of course, there are people who will be saying, look, people want cars, people want to live well, people want trinkets, and so on and so forth. But I can guarantee and assure the people of Zimbabwe that your elected officials, the officials that were elected but through the will of the people in 2023, they are in Parliament to serve. They are in Parliament to ensure a push for a democratic breakthrough in this country.
Wow, powerful response to that. And you have done justice to this, Honorable, because a lot of people have been questioning the continued presence of CCC members of Parliament in there. But I think you have done well. I know Estella has a question on IPU, and then I will follow up with another question on that subject.
Thank you, Chief. Before asking the question on the IPU, there is a comment from our viewers and listeners. Lee C. Hlabangani is asking, now what's the way forward and what are you up to in Parliament? Is it on the benefit of Zimbabwe? Or is it true that you are begging Chamangu that he mustn't recall you? And in addition to this question, I would like to ask Honorable, could you please paint for our viewers and listeners what would happen if CCC MPs left Parliament and there was no opposition whatsoever in Parliament, as a way of demonstrating the importance of having the CCC MPs in Parliament, as you answered this question presented by Lee Slabangani?
Thank you very much, there, Stella, and I will deal with the question by Lee Slabangani there. We are in Parliament for the reasons that I have tried to articulate in my earlier submission, and that is to carry the constitutional obligation and role of elected officials and to ensure that we execute the mandate that Parliament must play in the governance of the country, and to ensure that we continue to defend the people of Zimbabwe and to defend the Constitution and to defend democracy. So that is, in essence, why we remain in Parliament, which is why you will realize how much of our MPs are involved actively in the lawmaking process. They are involved actively in challenging draconian laws and in pushing for reforms in the election, electoral reforms, pushing for reforms to ensure a protection of human rights in the country, to ensure the sustenance of the rule of law in this country. So yes, that's why we are in Parliament. Are we begging Chabangu to not be recalled? We remain principled. We are very principled individuals, but we will not be dishonest with the people of Zimbabwe to say everyone is principled. We know there could be some people here and there who might be choosing to dine with the opponent, to dine with the devil, to dine with ZANU-PF. We castigate such a behavior, but a majority of the MPs that were elected by the people of Zimbabwe are in Parliament on the CCC ticket. I can guarantee you that it's principle over benefit. We remain principled on the fact that Sebenyazo Chabangu is not a leader of the CCC. We remain principled that Sebenyazo Chabangu is a proxy of ZANU-PF, who has pushed the ZANU-PF agenda, and through his actions, he has delivered a 2/3 majority, which might see the mutilation of the constitution of the land. So we remain principled, and we will not go and supplicate with Mr. Sebenyazo Chabangu to not be recalled. If we are to be recalled, we will be recalled on our principles. We will be recalled, and the recalls will be illegal. The recalls are not from the citizens. We will remain entrenched within the citizens' movement and to push and continue to push the democratic agenda of this country. So we are not in any way fearful of recalls. There are worse things that have happened to our fellow comrades in the long walk to freedom in this country. Our comrades have died. We have comrades who have lost life and limb. We have comrades who have lost their houses, which were burnt down by ZANU-PF. We have comrades who were imprisoned and incarcerated for long periods of time because they chose to speak against the illegal and illegitimate ZANU-PF government. So recalls are really not something that will deter the MPs, progressive MPs in Parliament who want and who are desirous of representing the will of the people. Now, if Estella asks a very critical question, which I think it will aid in this discourse. What happens in the event that all CCC MPs resign from Parliament? Number one, a resignation is a legal act which will simply be accepted by ZANU-PF. In fact, it will be happily accepted by ZANU-PF because it will then mean that there are by-elections in all the constituencies which we currently control. And if we resign, obviously, that ought to be followed up with a very ideologically sound decision not to even participate in the by-elections. So we will deliver the whole of Parliament to ZANU-PF. What will that do? It will make it difficult for us to push for electoral reform in this country. We want to ensure that an environment of a free, fair, and credible election is created through necessary amendments to the Electoral Act, through necessary institutional transformations, and reformations. We want to ensure that there is a free and fair and credible election in this country through ensuring that we hold to account all institutions that play a critical role in the electoral processes. That, among other efforts which must be done to ensure that the people of Zimbabwe's will is never subverted and it will not be subverted. So if we deliver a full parliament to ZANU-PF, we will not have a platform to speak the voice of the people. We will not have a platform to represent the will and the desires of our people in our different constituencies, which we do in parliament. You know, if you follow parliament debates, go every Wednesday, our MPs from different constituencies are interrogating ministers over concerns of national interests, over concerns that arise even in their own different constituencies. So this platform remains relevant for that purpose, to ensure that there's that interaction between members elected from constituencies and the executive, to ensure that we scrutinize Mthuli when he comes seeking to put the country into more debt, to scrutinize Mthuli when he comes and speaks on his ZIG new currency, to say, okay, how do we restore confidence and how do we restore the fundamentals in the economy to ensure that there's progress and to ensure that our people are moved from the trenches of poverty into a successful citizenry. So we mustn't allow ZANU-PF to be alone in that parliament building. It will be a disaster for the people of Zimbabwe. It will be a disaster for the future of our children. It will be a disaster for democracy in this country.
Thank you, Honorable. I personally totally understand why it's important for our MPs to stay in Parliament, even if it is against the torrent of ZANU-PF attacks trying to silence the voice of the opposition in Parliament. I hope our viewer was well answered. The recall of our CCC MPs, which you alluded to earlier on, was condemned by the International Parliamentary Union a few months ago. They released a statement condemning and encouraging the government to rectify that situation. Is there anything else that the IPU can do to correct that situation beyond just condemning and recommending that our government should fix the situation?
We do take note of the statement by IPU, which was actuated by complaints which we had registered to the National Parliamentary Union. Zimbabwe does not exist in a vacuum. Zimbabwe does not exist as an island in regional politics. So regional bodies and regional organizations and institutions play a significant role in ensuring that there are proper checks on issues of democracy, issues of the rule of law, issues of human rights, and issues of constitutionalism. The statement by the IPU is a clear indication and a clear acceptance of the bad nature of our politics and the bad governance that is perpetuated by ZANU-PF. The recalls, as we indicated earlier, were by and through the hand of ZANU-PF. What the IPU did is to say there are standards which we must accept. And if those standards are not met, we cannot keep quiet, because an injustice that is perpetuated in the Zimbabwean parliament, as a member of the IPU, can spill over to become an injustice in other parliaments around the world. So there are standards. The reason why the state is made up of the executive, the judiciary, and parliament is to ensure that the checks and balances in the governance of a country are maintained. So Mudenda goes to IPU and he says he acknowledges what had happened in his parliament, and then he also then comes out and say, no, but I wasn't sure of the procedures within the CCC, so and so forth, and he makes an undertaking to say he's going to clean up his act. He comes back to parliament. What does he do? He recalls more members against the undertakings and that he had made to the IPU. So the IPU, according to the information that we have received, is scheduling itself to also pay a visit to the Parliament of Zimbabwe, to pay a visit to Zimbabwe, subject to some government processes and procedures that have to be satisfied, to further its investigations into the issue of the illegal recalls. But beyond sanctioning the Zimbabwean government and the Zimbabwean Speaker and Speaker of Parliament, beyond doing those investigations and giving recommendations, there is very little that the IPU will then be able to do in terms of influencing processes within Zimbabwe. Because remember, again, there is the principle of sovereignty, that each country must be able to run its own affairs. So they've done what they've done, and we believe they've done the most important task and job, which is to call out Jacob Mudenda for the illegal activities that he has presided over in Parliament, to call out the Zimbabwean government for the illegal misusage of Section 129 of the Constitution. They've done their best. It is now incumbent upon the government of Zimbabwe, incumbent upon Jacob Mudenda as the Speaker of Parliament, to ensure that he stops illegal recalls, to ensure that he stops an attack on democracy, an attack against opposition MPs in his parliament. So in terms of the report that we have received from IPU, we welcome it. We are happy that we still have institutions in this world which remain true to the tenets of democracy and constitutionalism.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much, Honorable, for being honorable enough to be honest with the people of Zimbabwe, because there are some people who have been arguing that IPU is going to come and reverse the whole situation caused by Shabangu. So thank you for being honest. But moving on, Honorable, we saw Senator Timber recently announcing a shadow cabinet. A lot of people don't understand the importance of that shadow cabinet. If you can just walk us through the functions of that shadow cabinet. And Senator Timber did also talk about the issue of electoral reforms in his press conference. What exactly is Parliament going to do about that? Have you already started talking about reforms? Because people of Zimbabwe don't want you to wait until the day before election or a month before elections, and then people start talking about electoral reform. The time to talk about reforms is now. And in particular, people in the diaspora, within the framework of reforms, there is the issue of the diaspora vote. Is Parliament going to do something about that now, not when we are about to go to an election?
Thank you very much, Chief Soshede. Yes, this past week, our Chief Administrator is appointed by the Citizens National Assembly of the CCC, announced the appointment of a shadow cabinet, which is comprised of members of parliament, sitting members of parliament, who were then deployed to various ministerial functions or shadow ministerial positions. One thing that we all must acknowledge and appreciate is the true commitment that is being shown by the CCC to electoral promises. We remember very well when our president was campaigning for the 2023 general election, President Pro-Chamisa was very clear that he would not overburden taxpayers. by introducing a bloated cabinet. He was true to a commitment to say we are going to have a lean cabinet which is appointed on the basis of merit. And this is what we have seen, even with the cabinet that has been announced, the shadow cabinet. It is a continuation of that desire, or a propagation of the desire and the vision of Advocate Nelson Chamisa. 16 members, 16 portfolios were created. Some ministries were merged to fall under one roof, under one minister. So what is the purpose of these appointments? What is the purpose of that announcement? We are not in politics, or we do not have opposition CCC just for the fun of it. We believe that we are an alternative government. And as being an alternative government, we must also reflect a culture and characteristic of the government that we shall become effectively when we take control of the executive. The shadow ministers exist for purposes of articulating alternative policy. You would notice I was appointed, which appointment I accepted, and I will execute to the fullest of my ability. I was appointed as the Shadow Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. There are 94 acts of parliament which are administered by the Minister of Justice. And it is the role of the Shadow Minister of Justice to ensure that I articulate alternative ideas, alternative strategies, alternative propositions in respect of all those 94 acts. This country and the government is run through acts. Ministers administer acts of parliament. They exercise an executive function. But in the exercise of the executive function, they make decisions every day, decisions which over the past 40 years have thrown this country into disarray. It is our mandate as a shadow cabinet to then say, when we are in parliament, we will scrutinize every policy which is brought before parliament. We scrutinize every statutory instrument which is published and gazetted by any minister, and the relevant shadow cabinet minister must be able to then say to the people of Zimbabwe, on this is our position. So all our ministers become de facto our policy spokespersons, so that we don't exist just to make noise, but we make relevant noise in the form of proffering alternative ideas, ideation, proffering alternative policy, proffering an alternative and progressive way of doing business for government. So that is about the shadow cabinet. You speak of issues of electoral reforms. Yes, the conversation is started through parliament, through our various committees, but also even at party level. The conversation around electoral reform has never been abandoned. We still remain committed to ensuring that we deliver for the people of Zimbabwe a free, fair, and credible election. We remain committed to our demands for the diaspora vote. We remain committed to our demands for the demilitarization of the electoral commission. We remain committed to our demand for an improved and efficient administration of the electoral process and the independence of ZEC. We remain committed to ensuring that the media space is freed up to allow for free and fair campaigning of political parties. We remain committed to ensuring that there is not overbearance of the security sector in the electoral processes. So those are policies which we are pushing through a push for electoral reform, reform of the Electoral Act, reform of our institutional regulations, so on and so forth. And we are utilizing the platform of parliament to push that. We are utilizing the now created platform of the shadow cabinet to articulate the amendments, to articulate the reforms which we want to see actioned for the people of Zimbabwe to have a free, fair, and credible election, and for the people in the diaspora to be allowed to vote. Isn't it not beautiful us seeing South Africans across the country, across the world, queuing up at embassies, queuing up at their consular service areas to vote, because they contribute significantly to the fiscus in their nation. So they must be allowed also the right to make a choice to vote, and not just to be told, come back to Zimbabwe from North America so that you can vote. You must be allowed to vote even in North America, because in any event, you send your mothers here, you send your children here, money which gets into the national fiscus. So we are committed to electoral reform in this country. That is the point.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Yes, indeed, it's important for the opposition to have its shadow cabinet in waiting, so that the day, and practicing too, so that when the day comes for them to take over, they are set and in position. One issue that I've seen causing a lot of dissent on social media is a lot of people don't understand why you are called CCC MPs when clearly you're called Pro-Chamisa. CCC MPs are called Pro-Chamisa MPs when President Chamisa has already announced that he has exited the political scene, and people are not sure. Are you affiliated with President Chamisa? Could you inform our viewers and listeners, Honorable?
Thank you very much. There cannot be a debate around the position that President Advocate Nelson Chamisa holds in this country. He is the legitimate leader of the people of Zimbabwe, legitimately elected, cheated, abused, but still the hope for a democratic breakthrough in this country. So we are unequivocal in our commitment to ensuring that, albeit all the illegal processes that we have experienced, albeit all the attacks and challenges, we are going to ensure that we will deliver Nelson Chamisa as the president of this country in the near future. President Chamisa resigned from the CCC, and he gave his reasons, which I will not get into now because it is an issue of public knowledge. But he remains President Chamisa. He remains Nelson Chamisa. We are pro-Chamisa. There is no doubt about that. Being pro-Chamisa doesn't necessarily mean that Chamisa is CCC. We were elected and sponsored through a political party called the Citizens Coalition for Change. That political party was led by Nelson Chamisa. When he resigned, he did not decimate or shut down that institution, because it is an institution that carries its assets in the form of MPs, in the form of councillors. We control a majority of urban councils in this country. So there is a lot that is involved around the existence of this political outfit and political party called the Citizens Coalition for Change, which cannot just be simply ignored, because we have to think institutions, we have to think representation of the people, so on and so forth. So people that say these MPs are pro-Chamisa are people who are acknowledging that there are certain MPs who stand for the same values and principles and prioritize the people in the same manner and same way that Nelson Chamisa did. And this is what a majority of our MPs in Parliament represent, because Chamisa is a man, but Chamisa is an idea. Chamisa is an idea for a democratic breakthrough in this country, and that idea is an idea that we associate with, that we believe in, and that we will push for come hell or high water. So yes, we are called Pro-Chamisa, and we are happy to be called Pro-Chamisa because being called Pro-Chamisa is being called pro the people of Zimbabwe. Go everywhere, social media, go to the villages, go to the countryside, everywhere. People will tell you that Chamisa is the hope of a new Zimbabwe. Chamisa is the hope of a democratic breakthrough in this country. What he represents is what we are pro. So yes, we are pro-Chamisa. I'll bet him having resigned. That's a different conversation. Resignation from the party and, the...
We seem to have lost Honorable.
I'm sure Honorable Gumbo will come back. Is the network when ZANU-PF sees that there's someone who is speaking truth to power, they get in the way because Honorable has been on fire, clarifying issues and setting the record straight. And I'm sure the people that are listening and the people that are going to listen to this program later will certainly acknowledge that our member of parliament has done justice to most of the questions and also has managed to clarify the confusion that is existing, especially with regards to members of parliament that are still in parliament today, that there is still relevance over topical issues, key issues like the issue of reforms that we were talking about. And so he has done justice to all that and clarified the position of the party very well, and also talked about the relationship between the pro-Chamisa or so-called pro-Chamisa members of parliament and President Chamisa. Why you heard Honorable Gumbo, even in this conversation, he continued to refer back to President Chamisa or Advocate Chamisa frequently, which means that the connection is still there, and he was unapologetic that the connection must be there and must continue to be there because they are representing what he stands for and what he promised the people during the 2023 election. Leo, if you can, or Estella, if you can call Honorable Gumbo so that we can continue with the conversation. Are you seeing him in the back room there at all? Is he there?
No, he's not. He's not in the studio.
Okay.
He's not.
I'm sure you'll come back. Estella, your thoughts on the on what Honorable Gumbo has been saying?
A lot of very informative insights there. And Honorable just entered the studio. There we go.
Okay.
Forgive me there, I had a bit of a technical issue.
Okay, no problem. You can go ahead, Honorable.
Yes, so I was still speaking to the question on why we are being called pro-Chamisa and so on and so forth. And I said, look, we are pro-Chamisa because we are pro the citizens. We are pro-Chamisa because we're pro people. We are pro-democracy. We are pro-constitutionalism. Part of that is not in our culture, is not in our nature. And when, I know there's a conversation around, look, because Chamisa resigned from CCC, all you guys also required to resign from CCC. I can guarantee you that the president has given clearly to the people of Zimbabwe his vision. He has said to the people of Zimbabwe, he will come back and he will advise on what the way forward is. We are not rushing him for that way forward. We are preparing for that way forward.
Wow, thank you very much, Honorable. Very, very clear. As we get towards the end of our program, I'm sure a lot of people would want to hear your thoughts on the landmark or watershed elections that are happening next door in South Africa. Some people are even going on to say, Honorable, that Zimbabwe is also on the ballot box in the South African election. Meaning that they are thinking, and some are hoping, even myself, I'm actually praying that the ANC loses outright or it loses its majority. What do you think happens when the ANC loses its majority? We just want to hear your thoughts on that and the impact or the effect that that might have on the Zimbabwean political scenario.
Obviously, South Africa remains a critical partner or critical twin for Zimbabwe in if we are to consider, our geopolitics. Some would say that when South Africa catches a cold, Zimbabwe sneezes. This is obviously because of the bilateral relationship that exists between Zimbabwe and South Africa, both from an economic and ideological point of view. South Africa is Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is South Africa. Despite all the challenges that the two nations or face, the citizens of the two nations face, so on and so forth. So this election is something for Zimbabwe to watch out for. We know very well that from what we have been experiencing and witnessing, the ANC is fast losing support, it's fast losing its hold. This for us is significant in what way? ZANU-PF government is a liberation war movement. There is a certain level of camaraderie which has been exhibited, particularly by the Ramaphosa administration. The Ramaphosa administration has shown lenience or over-lenience towards the ZANU-PF regime and its perpetuation of human rights abuses in the country, its perpetuation of unconstitutionalism and the shrinking of the democratic space. We clearly and surely do not wish to see that culture being imported or exported to South Africa through the culture of camaraderie of revolutionary parties. So the loss of ANC, we are not saying ANC is really going to lose. The election is coming, but what we are sure of, and from what we have been reading in the politics of our neighbors, is that the ANC is likely not to get the supermajority that it gets. So that is very important for us. And that electoral process is important in the sense that we require a government in the South which will be honest against the ills of the ZANU-PF government in Zimbabwe. You would know very well that there's the issue of migration which have become topical in South Africa, and it's actually a topical issue and an electoral issue in the coming election for South Africans, because there's been a series of xenophobia in South Africa, and a call and demand to cancel permits for Zimbabwean residents or for Zimbabwean citizens who are resident and working in South Africa. South Africa houses almost over 1 million Zimbabweans who are there legally with permits, so on and so forth. So the push by a majority of South Africans, of people in South Africa, particularly within smaller political parties, and also that push is also, echoing within ZANU-PF, ANC's electoral messaging. So we are worried again that should ANC retain a majority, two things will happen. There is uncertainty for Zimbabwean citizens who are in economic exile in South Africa. There's uncertainty for them, but equally there's an uncertainty around comradeship or camaraderie, the ideological persuasions which might see an ANC government seeking to push for the retention of ZANU-PF control and ZANU-PF power in Zimbabwe. So this election is very important. We look forward to seeing the opposition voice rising in South Africa, securing, a majority. We know the EFF is doing quite well, and the EFF has been very vocal in speaking against the ills in ZANU-PF, speaking against the economic decay in this country, and also expressing their solidarity, with regards the issues of democracy, human rights, Africanism, and so on and so forth. So a coalition government is what we are anticipating is going to emerge in South Africa, which will be good for the people of South Africa, because even the South African economy itself is on its knees. And it is on its knees because of the continued corruption of the Liberation War movement, the continued mismanagement of national resources by the Ramaphosa regime. And the people of South Africa require a voice that will speak to the future of the country and not, be hell-bent on a retentionist mindset, which is not concerned with the future of that nation. You know very well that South Africa is, most of our goods here in Zimbabwe, we get them from South Africa. So South Africa is a significant trade partner for our nation. We do not require a trade partner which is suffering in terms of its economy. So any electoral outcome which will ensure the sustenance of economic prosperity in South Africa is useful for us as Zimbabweans, because it means therefore that we can strengthen the trade relationship and ensure that there is free movement of goods and services between the two countries. You know, just last year, Zimbabwe was in the top 5 of exports markets for South Africa. And equally, we export quite a number of services and goods, including human resource, to South Africa. So we require that, number one, a government that is going to emerge from this election be a government that unifies the people of South Africa, be a government that unifies even South Africa and other fellow African countries. So it's an important election, and we wish South Africans a very good and violent-free voting season. Let the will of the people prevail. We do not want to see a repeat of the bad electoral culture that we continue to see in this country. And we believe that a successful South African election it sends echoes towards a successful Zimbabwean electoral process. Thank you very much.
Do you know, Honorable, just a quick one. Do you know if there are any CCC members of parliament or officials that will be observing the election in South Africa?
I do, know and understand. Of course, I will not be at liberty to go into much detail around that. That we also have a few of our officials who are going to be taking part in terms of observation, and also just taking part in terms of going to witness how the electoral process in that country is going to be conducted. Because it's very important for us to take lessons. It's important for us to, take a leaf and a page from the processes of our neighbor, so that we can inform what reforms we also require in this country. We can inform how better we can manage and run our electoral processes as a nation. So yes, we do have some people who will be going to South Africa to witness this very important democratic episode in the history of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable. Go ahead, Esther.
Oh, yes. I was just thinking, as we are starting to round up, Honorable, there's a lot of Zimbabweans had placed their hopes in the 2023 elections, but they were rigged. Then there were hopes that since we at least had ZANU-PF did not have the 2/3 majority in parliament, at least our MPs, our representation in parliament could advance the interests of the masses and help to usher in democracy in Zimbabwe. But obviously the recalls of the CCC MPs dashed those hopes. And then there were hopes that there would be fresh elections monitored by SADC. And we are approaching June now, which is the month that those elections were purported to be scheduled. So clearly that too is off the table. My question to you, Honorable, is Oh yeah, and another thing, we have the SADC summit in August, where apparently Mr. Mnangagwa is taking over chairmanship of SADC, which is another slap in the face of the Zimbabwean people, pretty much legitimizing President Mnangagwa. So my question to you, Honorable, is there hope for Zimbabweans?
Is there hope for Zimbabweans? I must start by saying, Zimbabweans, we are our own liberators. It is incumbent upon every citizen of this country to take up a responsibility of ensuring that we usher in a democratic dispensation of governance in Zimbabwe. Political parties and political leaders exist to chart a path. We are, if you may, a compass to direct the masses of our nation towards a revolution that will ensure that we deliver a democratic government and we deliver success and we deliver prosperity for everyone. So the responsibility starts in your own house. The responsibility starts in your own office. Wherever it is that you are, you carry that responsibility together with us. So there was, yes, I do agree, there was talk around a fresh election in this country. There was talk around SADC monitored elections, and there was even a date, June, suggested. Well, you know, in this age and day of social media, news and sometimes fake news travels fast. And sometimes fake narratives can carry the day. We acknowledge one thing about what happens with SADC. SADC had a mission during the 2023 election process, which was led by His Excellency Nevas Mumba. That mission, that election observer mission, presented a report. It presented its findings, which findings were reflective of the shambolic electoral process in this country, which findings ought to have informed the whole of SADC to stand against a stolen election and an illegitimate Mnangagwa presidency. Unfortunately, you know, in the world of diplomacy, particularly within this SADC region, it's very worrying how there is a certain level of brotherhood which these presidents have created, which causes them to look the other side when the nation next door is burning. And this is what we've witnessed since the coming out of the Nevas Mumba report. We applaud President Hichilema Hakainde for standing solid on his ground to push and say we must allow democratic processes, because only democratic processes produce legitimate governments. He has stood steadfast on the report presented to him by President Nevas Mumba. But the silence around with the other SADC presidents has been worrying. It's worrying because we believe that SADC must exist to ensure that within the region, democracy is upheld, free and fair electoral processes are undertaken. If there is silence when there is a stolen election in one country, what it means that it delegitimizes the significance of the whole SADC union, to the whole SADC unit. Why are you there? You can't just be people who meet to drink coffee, eat buns, and ignore critical components, fundamental components of economic prosperity in our country and in our region. And what are those fundamental components? Ensuring that constitutionalism is upheld. We cannot be a region of barbaric politicians and barbaric leaders and barbaric governments. Governments throughout the SADC region ought to stand up and speak against the political problems that exist in this country. Let's cure the problems in Zimbabwe to allow for a successful and to allow for a healthy region or block of nations. So we know SADC is coming in August in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is hosting the SADC summit. We believe that it is an opportunity for SADC to also put on the agenda the politics of this country. We believe that this is an opportunity for all SADC leaders when they come to Zimbabwe to discuss and deliberate on the issue of disputed elections, to try and cure the question of legitimacy, because it is the problem of legitimacy which is creating economic crisis in this country. It is the problem of legitimacy which continues to create a vicious cycle of political ills and political problems in this country. So there must be sincere conversation around what needs to be done in Zimbabwe at this coming SADC summit. We believe and we will push, we continue to push that Zimbabwe must be on the agenda. It must not just be the host, but it must be a key agenda item for discussion to ensure that the people of Zimbabwe get the freedom that they deserve.
Wow, powerful. Thank you very much, Honorable. Estella, if there are any questions from the comment section or comments, you can go ahead and read them as we round up.
Yes, actually, this one is a little bit tough on Honorable. You're being put on the hot seat, Honorable. My Terry is asking, but yes, the people were waiting. Why you told the people to be calm when you now say we are our own liberators? She's asking, why didn't you tell the people immediately after the elections that don't wait for any fresh elections, don't wait for any SADC, don't wait for any international organizations to come and rescue you? You were telling people to be calm instead of telling them that, guys, we are on our own. We need to do something to free ourselves.
You can go ahead and read all the other comments so that
he can answer all at once. Okay. Then Lee Hlabangani is back again. He's asking, Honorable Gumbo, what's your position regarding CCC Congress and at least a structure to minimize loopholes of infiltration by the regime, or you have either alternative? I hope you got that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Maiteri, another question she asked earlier on, is it not for your benefits, you parliamentarians? We don't see why you are in that parliament. I think that is in connection with the question about why are you still in parliament? Yes, following the Chabangu debacle.
Okay.
Nicholas Munumtapa Mada says, Honorable Gumbo, can you enlighten us, the people, about obviously the two groups of CCC in Parliament in clarity? Because we, the people, know we have our representatives in Parliament, and Chabangu, together with ZANU, have theirs under CCC as well. Please assure us by also telling us how much you guys are distancing yourselves from Chabangu and ZANU PF. I thank you, Murozi Munu Mutapa Wekwamada. Milton Kufman Marimo commented, not impressed. Your answers are not true, just facts of your benefits, not voters. Sorry to put you on the hot seat. Yes,
Okay.
I think, yeah, those are the most significant comments we got.
Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed, it's a hot spot, but we chose to be leaders, so we must be put on the spot, and we must be accountable eventually to the people that we lead, regardless of how tough some of the questions might be. Your answers are not true. My answers are true. Let me start by just saying that there is a culture that we need to dissociate ourselves from. And I'll marry this response to the question around why we are now saying that we are on liberators. Before there is a political party, there is a Zimbabwean. Before we get into formations, we are in our individual selves responsible for ensuring that my house looks better, my family is fed, my yard is mowed, my neighborhood is clean. And then those responsibilities, which start from yourself, grow bigger and broader into governance issues. So when we say when we say we are on liberators, we mean that there's got to be effort from all of us Zimbabweans in ensuring that we deliver a democratic breakthrough for our country, in ensuring that there's development and progress and success in our politics and in our governance. So the responsibility is shared, but we do not say that so as to negate or abandon the leadership responsibility which we have been called to. Because for us, being in leadership positions is a call to serve, is a call to carry a burden, which obviously by the design of nature cannot be carried by everyone. So the opinions and the ideas that come from, and the efforts that come from the masses, that come from the citizens, matter in the progress of this country. So yes, when we came out of the election, there was a call for people to be calm. But one thing that Zimbabweans cannot come out and say is that we did not speak against the illegitimate election. You know very well, our president was very clear, even after the election, that the election was stolen. The facts on the ground were very clear. The election was stolen. SADC came out and gave its own report. Other electoral observer missions came out and gave their reports, speaking to the ill that existed in that electoral process, to the shenanigans in that electoral process, and say that the electoral process was not free, it was not fair. And we continue to call, and this is our call. That's why we are not talking about 2028, because we continue to call to say, to restore Zimbabwe to legitimacy, an election must happen. And an election must happen in conditions that allow for a free, fair, and credible election. We don't care about 2028. It's too far. We believe that the people of Zimbabwe must be allowed an opportunity to decide to decide their government. And we believe that these institutions like SADC and African Union, the United Nations, so on and so forth, they play a critical role in ensuring that there is adequate advocacy around the restoration of legitimacy in this country. So these conversations must happen, and they must happen from down in the grassroots, up into the corridors of parliament, in corridors of Senate, and in different government corridors. The conversation around the restoration of democracy in this country must continue. And there must also exist conversation between us, the elected officials, and our people who are on the ground. So that's why we accept when some of our citizens challenge the veracity of the things that we say, because we want to hear also from the people of Zimbabwe what their opinions around the future of this country are, because we build our ideas and we build our propositions and we build our policies informed by a consensus that must exist on the base. That's why today, we have several meetings that are happening across the country at grassroots level, so that the people of Zimbabwe inform the way forward for President Chamisa. They informed the way forward for their elected officials. They informed the way forward for the democratic alternative and democratic movement in this country. CCC Congress and structures. There was a clear agenda, a clear path, a clear direction around what we call a citizens' convention. You would recall, even before the election, that the President Advocate Chamisa would communicate to the people to say, after the election, there is to be a process to elect leadership, but also to inform policy positions for the CCC. A lot has happened in the past 6 months. In fact, from the from the day the election ended up to today, there's a lot that has happened in terms of the attack against the democratic movement, which has destabilized some of the plans and some of the agenda items of the party. But I can assure the people of Zimbabwe that it is within the interest and within the plan for the future of the movement to ensure that we allow a convergence of the citizens at a convention, which will then ensure conversations to inform policy. And these are processes that have started across the country. There are processes that are happening now. People are being organized in streets. People are being organized in villages. People are being organized everywhere, every corner of this country, to allow for a clear path to leadership, to legitimacy, and to allow for the people of Zimbabwe to be prepared for the big announcement that will come with our president, as and when he is ready for that. There's another question around groups of CCC in Parliament. The people of Zimbabwe must know this one very important truth. There are elected officials who were recalled illegally. Some of those elected officials recalled illegally were replaced by Mr. Sengezo Chavangu through again the hand and aiding of ZANU-PF. They support the illegal recalls. If you are replaced, if you are put in Parliament to replace an illegally recalled MP, you accept the appointment from the very same person who recalled our MPs. It means that you are supping and dining with the devil. So you carry the brand of CCC, but you are not CCC at heart. You are not CCC by any by any standard. So the people of Zimbabwe, these are facts that are known, and very soon we will be coming out to clearly list and even put faces of the MPs and senators who were sent to Parliament by Chavangu. Those that you elected remain committed to representing you, people of Zimbabwe. Those that you elected remain committed to ensuring that we continue on principle, we continue on our values, and we don't compromise on that, regardless of the threats towards the threats of recall, so on and so forth. And yeah, we will continuously be open. Politics and leadership requires us to interact with you, Zimbabweans, a lot. So it's not amiss for you to demand that we come and openly declare our allegiances and where our allegiances lie. And this is what we have been encouraging even our caucus to say: be clear to the people that elected you, go back to your constituency and clearly declare your allegiance to them and your allegiance to the democratic agenda of this country, and dissociate yourself from anything that will link you to Mr. Chavangu and link you to ZANU-PF. This is what we have encouraged our members of Parliament. This is what a lot of our members of Parliament are doing today. They come out openly to our meetings. They come out openly to our caucus. They come out openly and speak against the illegitimate structure that Mr. Chavangu and the Professor Washman are trying to speak to. What we know is that the CCC affairs at the current moment, they are run and led by Chief Administrator, Honorable Senator Timber, who runs it through he runs it together with an administrative bureau of members appointed by the Citizens National Assembly from across the provinces of this country, and that is the body which is running the affairs of the CCC. And anything else outside that, anything else other than that,
wow.
I hope I've done justice to some of the comments.
And I have a few comments here coming from some of our channels. By the way, we are broadcasting on Change Radio YouTube, Change Radio Facebook, Paul Mazore page, and several other pages. So just picking random comments here. Thank you very much, Honorable. You are very clear. And then another state comment here. Thank you very much, Change Radio. You are doing a good job. Keep it up. And this one is saying, my MP, thank you for representing us well. This one must be in your constituency. And he is. So yes, Honorable, thank you so much for this opportunity that we have had with you. We have gone over our time, I know, but I think you've seen that people are hungry for information. Yes. And I think we need to have these conversations over and over again whenever you have time. And just on one of the key comments that you made there, that there is a restructuring that is going on across the country. What I just want you, the word that I want you to carry to the powers that be, representing most of the feelings of the people in the diaspora. Let that not restructuring, start and end in Zimbabwe. It should also include Zimbabweans in the diaspora. Diasporans should not be thought of at a whim. They should be part of the program, and that restructuring should also be carried out in all the provinces, including diaspora branches and provinces. And then to our viewers and listeners, I think you have a lot to think about now. You have taken away a lot from the clarifications that have been made by Honorable, ranging from, their existence in Parliament. I think he has done justice to that, and also the issues that they're dealing with right now, including the issue of electoral reforms and the diaspora vote. And I think it also answers what most people have been asking and questioning. Why are we still having some members calling themselves CCC? He clearly explained that we have human resources, we have deployees in Parliament and in Council, and we also have assets across the country, and it's not easy to just it doesn't make sense. Actually, it doesn't make financial sense to just drop all that and say we are leaving. We have to make a process, have a process of leaving, which is actually called in economic terms or legal terms curatorship. So I think that's the process that we are going through right now. And there have also been issues to do with what people that are addressing in provinces, in branches or in clusters. There's been a lot of chatter around that. I think the Honorable has made that clear. And I'll also add that we actually need to be thankful of what that team led by Honorable Chubaya, Honorable Ostalosi, and many other leaders are doing. Because if that vacuum is left like that, Zimbabweans will live to cry, will live to regret, because that's exactly what ZANU-PF wants. They want that vacuum to be there, and then they will get it occupied by some people. Don't be surprised to see Chabangu sitting on that vacuum, or to see Monzora sitting on that. I would rather have Honorable Chibaya, Senator Timba sitting on that vacuum than a ZANU-PF stooge. So we need to be thankful of work that these leaders are doing. And once again, Honorable Gumbo, we appreciate you. We appreciate the good work that you are doing. Please do come back again so that we can have this conversation Champion Estela, in very few words, I know you want to just thank Honorable.
Yes, thank you, Chief, and a very, very heartfelt thank you to you, Honorable Gumbo. You've gone to great lengths to quiet the concerns that our viewers and listeners and the masses at large have concerning our representation in Parliament, concerning the shadow cabinet that was announced recently, and to encourage our viewers and listeners to take responsibility to ensure that they are part of the process of directing the politics, the economics, and the social issues in our country, and not to sit back and leave it all on the shoulders of our representatives in Parliament. That they are the ones at the end of the day who determine how powerful our representatives can be. If they don't have our support behind them, then this is what happens. They are recalled willy-nilly because we are not there to stop it. So very, very powerful submissions there, Honorable. And Chief, I would just like to remind our viewers and listeners that if you found this program informative and helpful, please do support Change Radio. We have posted a link in the comment section for our coffee where you can go and make a small donation. Your small donation goes a long, long way. But I shall not take much more time from you, Honorable. I'm sure if Honorable will give his closing remarks. Offer to you, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Change Radio, for having me today, and thank you to all the listeners and viewers who joined us today. Thank you also for the comments that were coming in and the questions that were coming in. We must continue to keep the lines of communication open. The conversation must continue. We have various platforms as your leaders where we are open to engage. You can engage us on our social medias, you can engage us even in our private messages, because we are willing and happy to continue the conversation, because we believe that it's a call to serve. To lead is to serve, and to serve you must listen. And we are ready to carry through and carry forward this task that we have been given. The shadow cabinet will be coming to speak to the public in the next coming days, to articulate the legislative agenda and to articulate clearly its agenda for the year. Continue to support the democratic agenda of this country. The democratic breakthrough in this country, like Estela said, will come only if we support each other, only if the people of Zimbabwe understand that it takes you and takes me to ensure that change is delivered in this country. President Chamisa will be coming to give his way forward for the people of Zimbabwe, but I can assure the people of Zimbabwe that at his very deepest of hearts, he has Zimbabwe as a major concern, as a major priority, and he will definitely be coming to lead a democratic Zimbabwe. Thank you very much, and until next time,
thank you, Honorable. Thank you, our viewers and listeners. We appreciate it. We'll meet again in another program tomorrow.
Now dzacho kuchiridzwa mimanzi yacho DJ Proof ndati wedzere mawadzi DJ Proof vaudze munhu wese kundovhota ngapinde mukomana ngapinde Chamisa uyo achinge apinda corruption ichapera. We need to change, we want to grow. New Zimbabwe, new beginning. Change radio nepenyure vanhu. Nobody knows kuyepa asi vanenge vachiisa kufumurwa upenyu hwakanaka tese tinohuda nyika yedu yakazara uchine mukaka ngatipeiwe chidi